Oh, okay. So this is exciting. Q Acoustics just went and released 3 brand new subwoofers, which, for me, being an unabashed Q Acoustics fanboy, is exciting because the one thing that I always thought was missing was subwoofers that adequately complemented their speaker lineups. They had the QB12 subwoofer, which I have in-house, the large behemoth 12-inch subwoofer, and then they also have this 3060, which is their slimline subwoofer for small spaces, which is most likely the one that I should have in this space here. But within that, there's space for more, and now they filled that space up. They released the new Q SUB series, so it's the 8-inch Q SUB80, the Q SUB100, which is the 10-inch subwoofer, and the Q SUB120, their 12-inch offering, which I believe effectively replaces the QB12 subwoofer. While the 3060S remains in their lineup, pricing is as follows. The Q Acoustics SUB80 retails for $899, the SUB100 is $1049, and the SUB120 is $1199. On the design front, as expected, these subwoofers match up with the rest of their speaker lineups. They are rounded boxes. They're available in 2 different finishes. They're Satin Black with a black grille and Satin White with a gray grille. I do have a penchant for white speakers, so it's fingers crossed that I do get one of those in-house. I've also never had a tiny 8-inch subwoofer either, and if I'm being honest, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I get a hold of one of those. There are a bunch of detailed specs that I will leave a link to down below if you want to pore over those specs and you enjoy doing that. But here are the basic highlights. All 3 of these subwoofers are sealed enclosures made from 18mm high-density MDF with a 36mm double-thickness baffle. There's internal dart bracing. The grills are 15mm MDF and they are fixed, which means I don't get to look at the beautiful subwoofer driver doing its thing. The drive units are a heavy-duty steel chassis with a paper cone and a rubber surround. Included with the subwoofers are locking spikes and spike cups for floor leveling and protection. All 3 subs also have digital signal processing, DSP, for system and room integration. There's also source detection and multiple standby modes. All right, and I'm gonna have to break up my laptop for this portion just because there's no way I'd get through these specific numbers just off the top of my head, especially in this short time. So starting with the Q SUB80, the frequency response is 36 Hz to 250 Hz. The low pass crossover goes from 50 Hz to 250. The peak amplifier power is 400 watts with continuous being 200 watts. The Q SUB100 has a frequency response of 32 Hz to 250. The low pass crossover now goes down to 40 Hz. Peak amplifier power goes up to 500 watts with a continuous being 250. While the Q SUB120 has a frequency response of 28 Hz to 250 Hz, with the low pass crossover staying down at 40 Hz, with a peak amplifier power now raised to 600 watts, with a continuous amplifier power of 300 watts. Just looking at the spec sheet, it looks like these are being positioned as lifestyle subwoofers that are perfect for music and movies without trying to hit those subterranean depths of dedicated home theater subwoofers that would please home theater fanatics. I am curious, though, about the SUB100 and the SUB80, the 2 smaller models, because I have had a few gargantuan subwoofers in-house, and I do find that the 10-inch subwoofers work really well in my space, but I've never had a smaller 8-inch subwoofer, and maybe a smaller subwoofer would be warranted. That way I can maybe hide it around places where I wouldn't be able to normally fit a subwoofer. So I'm curious to see how those sound. Fingers crossed that I actually do get a pair, or no, not a pair, a subwoofer. A pair would be amazing, but yeah, a subwoofer for review. And of course, if you wouldn't mind just liking the video, subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Cheers.